Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com.
Back for another week.
Back for another week, you son of a bitch. Adam, you son of a bitch.
Did it again. That's a joke that not many people will understand. But anyway.
Only the listeners of the show, but thankfully they're few and far between.
I was going to more say, is it a joke that only a few people will understand because it's a long-running gag, or that it just has no meaning and it's not really even a joke? Is it?
It's probably the latter in that scenario.
I feel as though we've been doing the show long enough that there are things that we just do now after 11 years that
oh god,
I think we've decided are funny, but if we actually tracked it back, it's probably just nothing. It's just like, is this something? We've just been doing it long enough and enough times in a row that it's formed its own comedy aura around it, even though there's no deep-seated joke actually at the heart of it.
It is only a long-running joke in that it's long-running and it made us laugh once, but maybe not even realizing it's not actually a joke.
And it's our lives. And it's our lives that are the joke.
It's got real deep, real quick.
Oh boy.
Yes, this is way too deep for a Sunday evening this early in the show.
So let's all drink our alcoholic beverages in unison and praise be to Q. What? No, not really.
Praise be.
Adam, you've been listening to too many podcasts about QAnon. We're getting off track. It's been a pretty wild week in the world. Big week. Which is quite surprising given, if you asked anybody a week or two ago, would be like, oh, well, once Trump's gone, the world goes back to normal, right? It's 2021. We've kicked Trump out of the White House. COVID's clearly dealt with, all that sort of stuff. No, there's more. The universe has more crazy ready and rearing to go at a moment's notice.
It's our job to bring it to your ears, dear listeners. It's our job to send you the good news.
Yeah. The final season of America concluded with quite a high stakes finale, and we are now in the spin-off show, which is Earth.
Society
season 1.
I call it.
I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show, but every now and then I will encounter a new person in my life, much to my chagrin. And they'll say, oh, so what do you like to do outside of work? And I'll say, I do a podcast. We've been doing it for over a decade. What's it about? And I go, news and politics sort of stuff. And they go, oh, you must bloody love Trump. Endless source of entertainment, endless source of news. Mate, you don't have to. I'm very extremely happy to never have to, to never draw from that well ever again. If I never get another Trump joke, if I never have to do another Trump impression, it'll be too soon. I'm happy to talk about anything else.
I give him half an hour before he defaults back to a Trump.
There'll be a Trump impression.
Half
definitely.
an hour.
Keep in mind, I can still yell about Republicans because they're trash. So there's still that.
It's all related. It's a slippery slope, Joel. Once you start talking about the crazy Republicans, then it's just another step to Trump.
Yeah, what are the Republicans talking about now? Well, you see, damn it!
You got me again. You got me again, you son of a bitch.
But I did it.
Guys, we'll start away from America, right? So we won't start off with the crazy Republicans. We'll start off.
I was going to say, the crazy Australians, because George, you may be glad you'll never have to draw from the well of Trump ever again, but that's okay, because you can draw from the well of our very own Trumpian leader, Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison, old ScoMo, our Prime Minister. So this story's a little old by our weekly comedy show, standards, because this happened a little over a week ago. But
you know what? Fuck you. If you don't like it, you can get your money back.
Yep, that's true. That's actually, sidebar, that's another one of those jokes that I think has just been, it's a thing that we just say every now and then, and we've just kept saying it. And is it funny? Still, I don't know. I say it sometimes.
Another good one.
In silence, great.
Another one. First one's free.
First one's free. Yeah, first one's free.
Family show.
Family show. Yeah, that's true. And just our affinity for dick jokes. Anyway, speaking of dicks, Scott Morrison.
What has dear Scotty done?
This past Tuesday was January 26th, which is known around the world as, for a lot of people as Australia Day, and it is a huge point of contention because it is a day that has been chosen. It was the day that that colonizers arrived in Australia, which kicked off the genocides and the torture and enslavement and just general awfulness of white people to the First Nations people.
All of the terrible things in Australia. So the genocide, slavery, shoes with lights in them, all of that started 1776.
Yeah. 1788 is when the Declaration of Independence was signed.
I'm pretty sure 1776 was when all of the things in history happened. Tom, okay.
Well, I mean, some things happened then, but anyway.
You could argue that if 1776 hadn't happened, that 1788 wouldn't have either.
Well, no. Well, if time ended at 1776, if time ceased to exist. Yes, I agree with you, Adam.
No, my point was that the reason why they selected Australia as a colony was because they needed somewhere else to ship all their prisoners rather than America.
Well, yes, that too.
Anyway.
Oh, you were more thinking if the War of Independence hadn't happened. Oh, see, I thought you were just being like, oh, well, if one year didn't happen, all the other years. Adam, you're
using maths. I'm using history.
Are smarter than I give you credit for.
Sometimes.
And he gives you no credit whatsoever. So that's...
No. Yeah, like George can be my witness to that. Anyway,
it's true. He talks so much shit about you when you're not around. It's fucked up, actually.
It was January 26th, earlier this week. And so every year as we approach January 26th, of course, the discussion kicks back in again of everyone wanting to change the date. It is often referred to as Invasion Day, January 26th, because, yeah, it's the day that the country was invaded. Like, I find it hard to dispute that. I don't think anyone is able to dispute that. At least with any sort of credibility. Like, the people who do dispute it will just be like, no, they'll pull out, who is it, Ann Coulter? Like, no, the people didn't invade here. They settled here. Like, it's a difference. Anywho, so yes, obviously the criticism comes up. People want to change the date. It's a day of sorrow and mourning for the Indigenous peoples of this country. And there's a lot of pressure on politicians to change it, at least from, our bubbles. And old Scotty Morrison had a different take this year than many other years. I feel many other years he comes up with something a bit more just like, non-committal and just like some hack thing of being like, oh no, it's the day of unity and all that sort of stuff. Let's not be controversial or contentious or whatever. It's the day to celebrate what a great country we are, not the shitty things we did, but without acknowledging that we'd done shitty things.
This is the way that Scott Morrison handles anything that he doesn't like in his life. Number one is he doesn't agree with the premise of the question. And number two,
never agree with the question.
Does not like premises.
He's just not a fan of premises at all. And number two, he's just, now's not the time to talk about that. Whatever it is, even if it is every day on a particular day, the same day every year, and that is the time that anyone is interested in talking about it, be it Australia Day or just about anything else. That's not the time to talk about it, and it's not appropriate right now. Something that will...
Which is obviously, the PR guys at the back going, now you're going to get some questions today.
He is the PR guy. That's the thing. The whole
I'm sure they've got... They hired like image consultants and stuff for him. I'm sure we've got a PR team that are researching this.
Well, he needs a better PR team then, because when he was asked about it this time, he said... after saying his things of that January 26th is, quote, all about acknowledging how far we've come, end quote. But he then followed it up with saying,
come from what? Sorry.
come from what? How far we've come from
you're so close. You're so close to getting it.
Is it the genocide?
From the genocide. Yeah.
He said, quote, when those 12 ships turned up in Sydney all those years ago, it wasn't a particularly flash day for those people on the vessels either. That terrible statement needed the silence that we just gave it, because it needs to sink in. It is utterly missing the point. completely missing the point. But also, he undoes his own logic there, because if you say like, oh, it wasn't a flash day for the white people on the ship either, it's like, oh, cool. Another reason not to celebrate it. It wasn't great for anybody then. You're admitting it was a shit day.
But how far we've come, what did you say then? What that day to this demonstrates is how far we've come as a country, and I think that's why it's important to mark it in that way. In what way? I'm not 100%
How have we come? How many Indigenous people have died in custody since they ran like a commission to figure out how many died in custody? It's hundreds. In the last 30 years. How far have we come?
Yeah, and, stolen generation, which makes the kids in cages situation in America look like, guys, you don't even know. You haven't even really appreciated the full large-scale intergenerational tragedy that can be visited upon minorities if you really have the stick-to-itiveness that Australia has had.
And it's just crazy. And I don't...
Something I learned, which I thought was interesting, is that I'm in favor of changing the date. I don't see any... I have no emotional attachment to the date. I think it's nice to have like a national day of patriotism, and like here's where we get around it and celebrate being Australia. America has their July 4th, and I get it. Like, I think that's a good thing to do. If Aboriginals, quite rightly, I think, have an issue with that, then it seems to me like it's a pretty easy fix to just say like, okay, we respect that. We will not celebrate on that day. We'll celebrate on another day. And it's not hard. Like, when people are just like, oh, the calendars have already been printed. What are we going to do? Like, I don't quite understand.
And
what
there's
the
so much
is.
like, what other day is significant enough? It's like, I don't know, fucking just pick a day then. It doesn't have to be.
The day that we decided the new day for Australia Day was January, anything else.
Yeah, why does it have to land on a date that's of a particular, like, significant event happened even? Like, it doesn't fucking have to.
The date that Kathy Freeman won... Did she win gold? What did she do? I don't know.
She won gold. Yeah, no.
She's won gold. The Olympics traditionally don't happen in our summer. So because that's the thing, people also I read some fantastic articles about it where people shared like a similar sentiment that you just did then, George, of like we have no real white people don't actually have like a strong respect or emotional connection to that particular date. The idea of celebrating Australia, sure, but like to that particular day, no. It's just we just want another public holiday in order to get on the beers in a summery day. And so pick another summery day. There's like some dates in February that are like semi-significant if you really fucking must. But the point is everyone trotting out this, let's talk about how far we've come, how unified we are as a country and all that sort of stuff. To use that as the reason to not celebrate, to celebrate on the day that our Indigenous cultures find reprehensible and saddening and that they want as a day of mourning, on top of all the other systemic issues that face them, just completely undermines it. Like, if you want this unity behind everybody, hey, these people aren't united behind you. They feel actually quite oppressed.
Provided that you actually did genuinely give a shit about unity and it wasn't just a cudgel that concern trolling that they used to beat their enemies on the other side of politics. Something I found was really interesting about the whole thing, and I wish I'd saved the article, but I do remember seeing some polling about this, which I thought was quite informative, where it talked about the amount of people that, like, we are actually very much in the minority in terms of people that want, percentage-wise, of Australians who want to change the date. Something like 38% wanted to change it. Some were very against it, others impartial. But some of the other polling I thought was quite illustrative, because it sort of shows you that they go, do you think it's going to be changed in 10 years? The vast majority of people think, in the next 10 years it probably will be changed. And when asked to reflect on the impact it had on the Indigenous community, people were like, it probably does have a lot of bad significance for them. The vast majority of people agreed on that as well. So it's like all of these people saying like, we know that it hurts. We know that it sucks. We think it's going to change anyway in the future.
But I don't want you to do it.
But do you want to change it? Nah, fuck them. That's basically the response. It's like, I don't want to change it because fuck them. So that's the only argument.
And is there anything more Australian than the response to, hey, do you want to maybe stop oppressing our Indigenous cultures? Nah, fuck them.
Yeah,
just that. Yeah.
I think it says something. Well, it's the same thing that we've been experiencing for the last 12 months. The same social response with COVID and people's ability to grasp that and everything else. That people don't like change. People don't want to change. If they have to change something that they've even had, once it becomes like a behavior pattern that they're used to, trying to change people out of that mindset, whether you reason with them or whatever, it doesn't matter. They're used to it.
These are the same people that will loudly applaud in a Q&A audience when Jackie Lambie says we've got to do national service. Because it really gives people, kids these days need to sacrifice. They need to understand the meaning of sacrificing for other people. And the only way to do that is with 2 years of national service. And everyone goes, fucking yes. It's like, could you wear a mask though, not to kill grandma? And they're like, I will fucking eat you alive if you ever suggest that to me again. How dare you?
Oh yeah.
I find we've done this dance every year for the last 11 years, and I'm kind of getting over it now because it's like it's the same conversation every year, and there's never anything new added to the conversation. I kind of feel like this conversation will keep happening for the next 10 years until, eventually that journey of change, eventually the pendulum swings to the other side, and there's maybe a Labor government or something, and then they do change it. The thing is, let's say they change it. Let's say it's middle of February, whatever. What's it going to do?
Well, that's the thing. It's not gonna, and that's the other thing I was going to bring up.
It's not actually.
Some people bring it up, being like, "Oh, well, what does that even achieve?" It's like it doesn't solve racism. Like it's not going to be the tick. Everything's all solved.
And I think there are a lot of people. It's a good start, and I think that's the thing. That it doesn't change anything, but you've got to start with gestures. A bow, if you will, to start the process of, well, not start it, but I think perhaps continue since, Kevin Rudd said sorry in 2007, continue that line of healing, national healing. You've got to rip up the old ground to start anew, so to speak.
Yeah, it shows a modicum of respect.
But for those people that, want to just, and there was an article in The Australian by Chris Kenny who was doing this a little bit. He was doing this a little bit, where he's like,
do you mean famous dog fucker Chris Kenny?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Who made this point basically that
alleged dog fucker. It was a satirical cartoon. I don't think he actually fucks.
Yeah, he didn't actually like a dog, but
that's all I remember is Chris Kenny dog fucker. That's all I can.
Also,
bring
Sky
up in my
News,
mind
Sky News pundit Chris Kenny, the Kenny Report, something like that. Anyway. But the point was in his article was that he was like, well, we're all missing the point here about Australia Day when really we should be talking about Aboriginal outcomes and, Indigenous health and all this kind of stuff. And to that end, he's kind of correct. I don't agree with pretty much anything else.
Yeah, but again, it's concern trolling. I don't think he's genuinely concerned about closing the gap. I think he's using it as a way of deflecting from the issue.
Perhaps.
Changing the date, as you say, is a symbolic gesture, but it would be a meaningful first step to demonstrate to the Indigenous community that we do give more than a single fuck about you. Yeah. It is a symbolic gesture, and it is only through, this is something the Biden administration has done really well, it's only about showing building the narrative that you show that you care about these sorts of things, that you can even start to begin the process of addressing them with policy. So we should be closing the gap. We should be, improving literacy rates. We should, in the Aboriginal community, we should be, getting them housing and making sure that their school attendance is up and making sure that their outcomes are as good as any other Australians. Yes, we should be doing
allowing them to keep their how they want to run their communities and their culture. We don't want to westernize.
No, and that's a whole other we have historically tried that. It didn't work out so good. See rabbit proof fence for details. But there's been a real under resourcing of these areas in the Aboriginal community, and we really need to do better on that in order to close the gap. That's the report that comes out every so often that says the disparity between Indigenous Australia and the rest of Australia. Those are the meaningful things that would make a difference. But the thing about symbolism and the culture wars, and it's like people digging their heels in on either side of the issue, is the symbolic things are the easiest things to do. They cost zero money. They don't, it would be.
But George, the calendars are already printed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's billions and billions of dollars in calendars.
Mate, we've already passed the details on to Kiki K. What are they going to do? A whole new run of calendars? I don't think so, mate. Well, let's just put it off till 2047, I think.
The Sports Illustrated calendar for 2022 is already printed. Is that what you're telling me?
Sure.
Well, that's just marketing gone crazy.
We know the dates. It's not like they change. We know the dates.
Yeah, like you can print calendars like 10 years in advance.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny that we mentioned that because I think the thing that really kicked off Scott Morrison's comments was that Cricket Australia changed. It was no longer the Australia Day. Is it a test, Adam, as the sports person? Is it a test match? Or
no. They were talking about so the Big Bash League, which is basically
Bash. There we go. I know there are tests, the league, there are bashes.
There are bashes, tests, and one days, and all other sorts of fuckery. Anyway, the Big Bash League decided that it was going to not say the match is on Australia Day, the match is on January 26th, and they were going to do other things to sort of make some symbolic gestures towards
symbolic
and that kind of thing.
Not really like, symbolic doesn't achieve much, but is at least like a symbolic, them doing what they can to at least like try.
As a private organisation, it's quite literally the least they could do.
Yeah.
It is the very least you could possibly do.
Yeah, but old Scott, how good's the cricket? Morrison was not having it. And that's probably why maybe he went off book from these alleged PR people that feed him what he should be saying.
Here's a question. For a prime ministership that's been so calculated, right? His nickname is Scotty from marketing, right? Because everything in this administration has been very much tailored and measured, and everything that comes out it comes with spin on it. Do you think that this was a genuine misstep, or do you think it was a calculated attempt to appear to flex for the base, for the hyper conservatives that see this as a cultural
I think that exact sentence was just him riffing. I think his message is what he would have been told to talk about is how far we've come. But the actual sentence itself, that's him brain farting.
Yeah, I think I agree, Adam. He got the point out that probably was the premeditated point, but he word vomited something real dumb and like kind of showed his hand in kind of maybe like what he thinks.
The other thing is like I don't expect anything less from a coalition, a conservative government. It's a conservative government. The whole concept of a conservative government is that you don't change that much. You change little by little, right?
Oh, the day if on January 27, Scott Morrison was like, you know what? I hear you. All right, let's do it. Like, so next Australia Day won't happen on January 26. I'll be like, what?
What we should do is, I think what would be very interesting is if there was another Labor government at the next election, what's their policy on it? What would they do? That's the question that I think we need to look at. If you're a Labor voter or if you're a supporter, a member or a donor, whatever, if you care about this issue, that's the question you need to look at. Not what's Scott Morrison going to do, because we know what they're going to do.
He's not going to do anything. Yeah, and I haven't read too much into it, but that's reminded me that I think old Albanese hasn't inspired people in that sense. I think like he had some sort of wet fart centrist compromise.
He's not setting the world on fire, because they know the left, they've tried to go real left with Bill Shorten back to the trying to get the youth involved. That backfired on them immensely. Albanese is now trying to hold the centre, which means you're going to find that he's pretty conservative.
This is what happens.
You're being generous. I would have said he didn't even try.
Yeah, no.
To get the young'uns.
Okay, so pretend I'm Anthony Albanese, and you're going to ask me what my position is on the change of the date and Australia.
Mr. Albanese, fantastic work DJing that birthday party the other weekend. You spin the decks rather well. Congratulations. And sorry about the car accident. But so January 26th.
Did you see me adjusting my neck just then? Is that why you said that?
No, but that makes it even funnier. Is it a thing?
He was in a car accident.
He was in a car accident and he was fine. So it all turned out okay.
Yeah. Is this anything? But January 26th is coming up, and so Invasion Day is coming up, and there has been a stronger push, more than ever, supporting changing the date. Were you Prime Minister, would you change the date?
That's what would happen.
You know what? That 5-minute build-up.
Worth it.
All right, we will
soundbite. Worth it.
We will take that as a comment.
This is exactly what I don't know whose fault it is exactly. But whenever the left tries to get pinned down, they try and do this thing where they're like conservative, like diet conservative, where they're like, oh, we don't want to lose any voters by, appealing to the other side of the opposing point of view. And we
also need them to win.
But so, and they do this thing where they'll just kind of strike this nothing middle ground, which doesn't please their base. And it obviously doesn't please the Conservatives because they
doesn't win them elections.
It doesn't win them anything. And it just makes their existing voter base just increasingly disenchanted with them because they don't stand for anything. Like, it's just this weird, I don't know, like, are they trying to harken back to like a Clinton-esque kind of like, like
don't
left,
you worry, George.
Neoliberal
Albanese,
kind of
Albanese shuffled his cabinet the other day, so the world's going to change now.
Oh, good. Perfect.
Shuffle the deck. She'll be right.
We got another unlosable election, have we?
Just like the last one that we lost.
Yes. My untrained, uneducated in a election stat political science background would tell me, though, is it something to do with the fact that whenever we see election results here in Australia, it is always so split, right? Like 51 to 49, always. Like it's a win by a seat, usually. Like we are so I can't remember what the last election results were off the top of my head, but I always saw like how 50-50 split we always are when it comes to the Labor Liberal win. And is it that, do you reckon, that's like, because Labor have seen like, oh, well, we have our voters keep consistently getting us 49%. We have to drag some of their 51% over to our side to win.
Yeah, but Democrats make the same mistake because they do the thing where they try and be like Republicans light, right? And no one respects them for that. I think the way you win people over is by honestly and ardently having a position and speaking to the issues that people care about. You find the 80% issues, the reasonable gun control, right, in the States, the universal healthcare, in the situation of a pandemic. Like, you find unlosable issues and you speak to those issues. Here's how you win voters, especially here in Australia, in a situation where it's not about goosing turnout, it's about winning voters because everyone has to vote.
Yeah.
You stake out a ideological standpoint that you think best serves the most amount of people, and you fight and die by the sword on it. You die on that hill, standing up for what you believe in. And people will respect you for that. And yes, you might win some, and yes, you might lose some, but at least you'll do so with honor, and you'll have a base of people that follow you and amplify your message that actually respect what you do, rather than seeing you as a cynical political actor. Like, because we've tried it the other way. We've tried the neoliberal sort of like conservative light, and we've lost the last 3 elections in a row. So clearly that's not
I would
working.
say that they were too left last election. That was the problem. As soon as you started talking about franking credits, goodbye.
See, I don't know that they were too left on that, because franking.
Yeah, they were. Of course they were. So why did they lose?
See, I don't know. If it was too left, it was an issue that impacted. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, basically Labor took away
not just franking credits, but
planning
also
on taking away basically a tax concession for revenue gained through investments. And so basically the investor class and the accountants everywhere all freaked out and said, no, get your hands off my retirement. And it caused a big backlash. And that's one of many factors that people say got them to lose the election. But
not just that, but there was the thing about housing as well.
The problem was, I don't think that they were too far left. It's that they made themselves big targets by announcing large sweeping policy reforms before they'd won power, with the understanding that of course they'd win power. And then they opened themselves up to a bunch of vicious attacks from the right-wing propaganda mill. attacking them on all these policy details. Now, you'll notice that Tony Abbott, leading up to his election win, never announced any fucking policy details except for stop the boats. He was an attack dog. And that's what you need to do in opposition to win an election. They weren't aggressive enough.
He had a 6-point plan, George.
Well,
Stop the boats.
The problem was Labor had a bunch of very comprehensive plans and they didn't have 3-word slogans. So the messaging got lost. It was convoluted. It wasn't convincing. It wasn't emotive. They weren't painting with the paintbrush that wins you votes. And sometimes that's big, sweeping, easy to understand emotional statements. And they got too technocratic. They thought they were going to win, and they got their policy wonk agenda out, and they started dreaming big, when instead what they should have been doing is attacking the opposition. And so they lost the unlosable election. I don't think it's because the perspective, like the franking credits one was an unpopular point of view, but I don't think the majority of their other parts of their platform were actually that unpopular. They had action on climate change. They had action on things like the NBN, on, you know, they've always been on the right side of gay marriage. Like I think the vast majority of the Australian people, if they did a vote compass, would probably end up somewhat left of center.
They don't know that though.
But they don't know that. So I'm saying the problem wasn't a problem of policy because they never got that deep into the policy. The policy they had was what they got attacked on.
Yeah, there was also stuff about like what was the thing about the negative gearing? The negative gearing changes as well.
Yeah.
These are reforms that you need to make once you're in government. You don't advertise that you're going to take out a negative gearing, which is basically a property tax concession that only affects the top 1%, because then the conservative media will use that as a bludgeon for the months up until the election.
I mean, we can talk about,
scare everyone that's got a single investment property, that making them think that they're going to go broke and that Labor's going to raise their taxes, the bill that Australia can't afford, like all that sort of shit.
In many ways,
these were pretty modest reforms that would have only affected really the hyper wealthy. But now everyone that's got a single, a rental property is just freaking out, going, Labor's going to take me fucking money away. We're going to be broke, Janice.
I do think that they pretty much gave the other side ammunition. In terms of the seats, it was 77 to 68, and then one seat to the Greens.
In answer to your question, Tom,
election, right? So less of a 50-50 split.
It is not a coincidence. Like, the guy who runs Vox Media wrote this book called Why We're So Polarized, and the name escapes me right now. But essentially, the argument is that things have been drifting in this direction for decades, and I see a similar kind of pattern playing out here in Australia as it has in the United States, where people have retreated to their individual corners, and I think that's partly because of the hyper-conservative, Rupert Murdoch, Fox News, Herald Sun mouthpiece that will go out of its way to back up a conservative no matter what they do, will attack a leftist government no matter what they do. Like, it has been drilled into people for decades now that the other side are just bad people who cannot be trusted. And so you can't engage in bipartisanship because it becomes an ideological battle as to identity. Who you are means you need to vote for this person. So it's a deliberate strategy that's been enacted on the populace rather than something that's just naturally occurring, I think.
Yes, certainly I think fear has a lot to do with it in terms of it's easier to spread fear than it is to spread positivity, which is probably a nice segue into our next story. So if you thought that the far-right groups that caused the insurrection in the US the other week it's a US problem, it's all good here, don't worry about it, she'll be right, Australia, we're all great, well, you'd be wrong because there are neo-Nazis walking around like it's Christmas at the moment. Not really, but they are out there and they are gathering in large groups. So there was a story that popped up on the Sydney Morning Herald the other day where there was a large meeting of Nazis in the Grampians National Park in Victoria. So I think it was about 40-something people. They all sort of must have made it a weekend, bring the Barbie, wear your black, wear your balaclavas and bring your SWAT stickers and everything else. We'll have a barbecue, get drunk and sing, hymns, Nazi hymns, and other Australian anthems, and
just
use them inappropriately.
Throwing up Nazi salutes and having Nazi tats and all that sort of stuff.
Where do these people? I feel like my weekends fill up so fast. You know what I mean? Like yesterday we had a 30th. You know, today it was my cousin's birthday. We're out in the park. You got to do the chores. I did a vacuum in the house. You know, did the dishes. You know, and then the weekend's over. You know, and you got to go back to work on Monday.
We can't even do a podcast in person. Like, it's too hard.
How can we, if we can barely organize to spend an hour with one another to speak about the news, how do these guys have a weekend devoted to Nazism?
See, George.
How much coordination goes into this? So they're on the groups going, Zig Heil, hey, how's it going? So does next Thursday work for you guys? Oh, no. Okay, well, yeah, Carol's got the kids. So we could do the week after. No, the week after doesn't work for me. I got to, obviously... Yeah,
I don't know. I got another tat to put on.
Beating up some Indians or something.
Guys, you see, this is where you're wrong. They don't have any friends. They don't have lives, so they have lots of time to
because of being Nazis.
Right. Or if all their things to do and all their friends and all their chores and all their anything are all connected to being Nazi.
Indeed. So this is an in-person meeting of a couple of groups that primarily communicate online.
I love that the way Adam describes it as though it's a meeting of the minds, as though they're going to sit down and discuss Rousseau over a port. They're just like, the Jews, still bad, huh? And they're like, indeed. Jews.
Yes.
Indeed.
So there are numerous reports of people from the area around the Grampians that ran into them. So there was a hiker who walked into one of the cave formations. They were all singing Waltzing Matilda.
It's so lame. This is their fun neo-Nazi getaway. Is they're just like singing songs out in the bush with a bunch of bros? Like, what is this?
And so you think, okay, well, how do you know they're Nazis if they're just singing Waltzing Matilda? When he walked away, they all started yelling white power. So
that's generally... generally, if they're doing Zig Heils, as they are in this photograph, it's generally a bad sign.
Yeah.
Apparently, they went to...
That photograph terrifies me because I went on a hiking holiday in the Grampians a couple months ago, and I think I was at that spot. I recognized that location. I was like, oh, I've been there. Oh, shit.
I just love the idea that you get to a mountaintop. The Grampians are just beautiful, stunning. If you ever get the chance to go to the Grampians, you should absolutely go. You get up to the top of the peak. You've been hiking all day. You look down as the sun sets over the gorgeous Australian landscape, and you think, man, how's the serenity? Yeah, it's beautiful, man. You know, it really...
You know who would have appreciated this view? Hitler.
Really makes you think about your place in the world. You know, this beautiful vista. Yeah. Fuck the Jews. Yeah, fuck the Jews. But like, I mean, look at it, though. It's so peaceful. How good is this
country, though? It's great, yeah.
Oh, you know, it's just, how's that serenity?
So other hikers and residents of nearby Halls Gap, they watch members of the same group marching through the small tourist town Sunday and Monday. This group, they assembled around the local barbecue area, some shirtless with, as Tom said, Nazi tattoos.
Yeah, generally a tip-off.
And one of them told them that they told a local that they are the Ku Klux Klan. So, you know, another great association to throw yourself out around.
But the thing which I thought was interesting is they went and hung out at a cafe called the Black Panther Cafe, which is staffed and owned by an Indian family.
Well, yeah, they're there to intimidate people, of course. Like, they're there to be... Like, if they're, like, going to a barbecue place with their shirts off and with Nazi tats, like, they are there to be, like, loud and proud, we are white supremacists.
I just can't imagine them just, like, hanging out at a cafe staffed by an Indian. Just be like... Yeah, can I get 5 fucking lattes, thanks? Hell.
Well, I don't know. They probably want to fucking scare the shit out of them.
I just like it. Just all of this just doesn't comport with my idea of white supremacists. You know what I mean? It's just such normal behavior, just like going and having a camp out, going for
having a barbecue away with mates.
Yeah, it's such.
Well, it's the kind of thing that Hitler used to do. Right.
Aren't they called, I thought one of the groups that they refer to in here is the Lads Society.
Yeah. Well, this is where it gets interesting. Yeah.
So much like, you know, the whole lads behavior of, it's like a bunch of burly dudes having a barbecue, going on a hike, doing like man stuff. You know, going to the cafe for brunch. That's all lad things and lad culture becoming entwined with Nazis.
And this is where it gets interesting because it all starts online. And by the way, the members of Halls Gap and other areas around that community did report this to the police, and the anti-terrorism guys were straight onto it.
That story. Are you going to tell that specific story of like the guy who called? Like that sounds terrifying.
It does sound terrifying. So he called the police, and they were like, the anti-terrorist guys called him back and were like, "Can you take some photos?" Anyway,
like,
so he went up.
Can you go in and get evidence of these dudes? I'm like,
I don't think I can.
I'm sorry, the 40 Nazis?
This guy, to his credit,
one guy to 40 Nazi?
To his credit, he went up to them, started filming, and then got strong-armed by them, and he had to like run away. So yeah, look, I mean,
like if a cop just tells me like that, like, oh hi, I'm like Sergeant Steve from the anti-terrorism organization, like, or like I'm fucking Jack Bauer. Can you please just walk up to these Nazis and take photos? Be like, isn't that kind of your job? I'm a skinny little dude who'll get killed.
Yeah, no, we haven't got someone out there till Thursday. Could you just do us a favor and just take photos of the terrorists for us? Just shoot them over to us via text, like whatever's easiest.
Oh yeah. Just if you could just gather some evidence that there are some weapons of mass destruction, that'd be rad.
The police eventually rocked up. 6 of them rocked up and tried to move them along, and then did the whole thing of like filming them, taking their names and all that kind of shit that we see, in the Karen from the Bunnings car park and that kind of shit. So interestingly, ASIO's current caseload, 40% of it is right-wing extremism right now.
Yeah, because people always like, oh, it's Antifa, it's the left, it's the radical left. I don't see the radical left going on fucking picnics and, like organizing for the downfall of capitalism. And, like the radical left is just like, hey, can we get these, broken children some healthcare, please? Like that's the radical left here in Australia. You know what I mean? Like,
ASIO's Deputy Director General reckons that because of COVID, because more people have been spending time online away from society, it's become a bit of a problem because they had nothing else to do. You go down the rabbit hole of going in these chat rooms, and it just keeps going and going. So there's actually 2 groups that make up the group that met up the other day. One of them is, as Tom said, the Lads Society, which is the same group that tried to stack the New South Wales Young Liberals a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
just like have a coup in that. The other one, and they're like young. They're a younger group, as far as I'm aware. The other one is the Antipodean Resistance, right? So what they've done is one's apparently an older group, one's a bit of a younger group, and they've gone, well, actually, we're all Nazis. Let's join together. And they've now created this new outfit called.
They all looked at each other, and they, much like David Mitchell said, "Are we the baddies?" And the other guy said, "Yeah, we are. Beer." And then they all were best friends.
They're called the National Socialist Network is the new name for this.
That doesn't bring up any associations with me. Historically, have there been any nationalist socialists that we should be concerned about?
I mean,
it doesn't ring any bells.
I don't know. I mean, there was that thing in Germany like many moons ago.
No idea what you're talking about. Angela Merkel? Is that what you're talking about?
A bit before then. The
fall of the Berlin Wall.
No, earlier.
The Cold War. What a time.
Yeah, World War II, I think it was called.
Doesn't ring any bells.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, so the members of this have been sort of prolific for the last number of years in various sort of circles, but the point being is these guys are out in public, they're intimidating members of the community, and partly through us talking about it and also getting mentions on The Age, they're spreading their message and getting basically PR out of it, earned publicity.
Getting some earned media out of it. Do you reckon that's why they sort of staged this very public
100%.
Sort of outing? Yeah.
100%. So it's a recruitment rally for them.
Because from one perspective, it's only 40 guys, right? So you go, okay, well, at least it's not thousands that are trying to storm the Capitol and breach democracy. But at the same time, 40 guys are just the guys that turned up, so it's likely more, and it likely only represents a fraction of the people nationwide that are involved in these groups, because they're all in the one sort of area near to each other that they could go to the Grampians here in Victoria. So I think it is a problem that's likely to get larger. And the problem is with, you said 30 minutes from now, the problem with Donald Trump and people like him is that they've popularized these movements and made it socially acceptable for people to hold these views. And so now
they've legitimized them.
They've legitimized them, and now they're coming out of the woodwork. I remember not that long ago when Nazis were just the obvious bad guys in the video games that we played, where it was just like, oh, we need something to shoot. What should we make them? Nazis, because Nazis are bad.
Yep. Killzone, Space Nazis, Wolfenstein, Nazis, any of the Medal of Honor or Call of Duty franchises, Nazis.
Just regular Nazis.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Nazi.
Like the Stormtroopers are essentially
Space Nazis.
The Nazis. Yeah, the SS.
COD, zombie Nazis.
Yeah. So you might say that the rise of these kind of groups is, it's become increasingly more mainstream because of the amount of time people are spending in their own echo chambers, which is why you would think that we need good, legitimate journalism that is, well funded to be able to get the correct information and to not go down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
It's funny you to say that, Adam, because this article from the neo-Nazis going bush in the Sydney Morning Herald, that was my last free article remaining with them. So I don't actually know how this ends up. So okay. Well, I would say go to Google and have a look at how other stories, but probably don't do that because Google will probably just limit your search results now because they don't want to have to pay for anything because the trillion-dollar company, they're crying poor.
So many mobs coming out of those wallets.
Indeed. We've talked about this a couple of months ago now. The Australian government's trying to introduce a new code, media bargaining code, where effectively the concept being is large search providers like Google, Facebook, that kind of thing, if they're going to recommend stories to you as an individual or, have things pop up in search results, that Google should pay the media company a dividend for that, and there would be an arbitration process. And all this kind of stuff.
The idea being that because of Google and places like Google and Facebook, all of these articles are being searched. A lot of times people would just read, the headline or something and not even click into it. And the whole business model for these newspapers and news outlets has been sort of subsumed by places like Google and Facebook because of the way that they advertise, right? You can just click on an article. They're making money off you having clicked on some things, but the actual news publication isn't making any money on, yes, they get internet traffic, but internet traffic is like Google is the internet for most people. So that's just how people find their way around. Mm. So everyone's getting all their information for free, which is great for the people, not so good for the news organization that needs to pay all these people to put the content together. And Google has basically sort of stripped away any sort of business model that they might otherwise have had. So this might be the first thing from the Morrison government that I'm actually like, yeah, I'm on Scott Morrison's side when he said, yeah, we will not be bullied. This is what we're doing. If you want to link to our news sites, we got to have a model that allows for free and fair journalism that allows them to be compensated properly. So if this is what we need to do to restructure things, then so be it. I was like,
and Google took it.
Did I just agree with Scott Morrison? Did that just happen?
I think
Earth One or
broken clocks and all?
Yeah. And funnily enough, Google took it really well. So they're willing to play ball. Yeah, they're going to engage and just sort of do whatever the government tells them to do. Mm-hmm. And we all lived happily ever after.
Bow. What Google said is, fuck you, we're going to take Google away from Australia. And we're like, what does that even mean? And they're like, I don't even know.
And this is the best part about it is over the last 4 months, they keep throwing out new threats. They're like, first one was like they put out a big thing on the on YouTube and in what was it on the Google homepage that was
they're
like
still doing, they're getting even more aggressive now. So you're doing Google searches and it's actually showing up as the first result under Google searches. Like, this is what Australia's trying to do to the media code. They're trying to take away your freedoms or something. And everyone's like, oh, I'm angry. I don't know what I'm angry about, but I'm angry.
And yeah, it's gone from being, oh, you should be informed about this, to we're just going to take Google away if you don't object to it, Australian people.
And you know what? I fucking dare you, bro. Like, I love Google products. I love YouTube. I love Google Maps. I love Gmail. I use Docs all the time. There's a lot of Google products that I love. I fucking dare you, bro. I dare you. Because the advertising market for Google search in Australia is worth $4.3 billion a year. So if you guys are happy to leave $4.3 billion a year on the table and let it go to fucking Bing, then you're an idiot. Just pay the news sites fairly, and then it's done. I can understand their reticence to want to like share updates to their code with news organizations early. Like, that's fine. That makes sense to me. But, you know, just doing it, threatening to pull a service from an entire country just because you'll have to pay your fair share to an industry that you've completely hollowed out and subsumed, just seems like childish. It's as Adam said in the chat, it's the kid who loses a game of cricket and then packs up his ball and goes home and throws a tanty because he lost.
Like, no, it's my equipment. I'm going home. And then everyone's like, well, you just ruined the game for us.
You get to win capitalism, but you don't get to win so hard that nobody else gets to play the game. And that's what these internet giants have done. They've made they've created a $1 trillion company out of hollowing out all of these other business models. And when time comes to pay their fair share, all of a sudden they turn out their pocket. Me no, can't afford. Oh, miso. Oh no.
The other thing that they've been doing this week is experimenting, and we love a good experiment when it comes to internet searches. They've been, for about 1% of Google search users in Australia, they've been basically removing what would have been the affected news sites from the search results. It's
a fun experiment where we break democracy and get rid of all the major news sources that are verified and have researchers and fact checkers. Instead, we'll just put a bunch of bullshit there instead. Just a bunch of conspiracy theory, user-generated content horseshit. How does that sound, guys?
Fun little experiment where we just take a huge dump on the fourth estate.
Yeah, it's a fun experiment where we get everything we want and you can go fuck yourself.
Which is what they were saying was going to happen initially, but not because they were forced to, because it's their choice.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to affect the results, not because they're legally obliged to do any of this. It's because they just don't want to have to pay anything. So, fuck you.
Which is fine if there was like 3 search engines and they all split traffic equally. You go, fine, well, we'll just appear on search engines that want to host our shit and people won't use your search engine anymore. But the fact is, Google owns 90% plus of the search engine traffic. So as I said before, for most people, Google is the internet. I don't even know how I would find other things to search with, but to search for them on Google in order to find them.
Tom, what do you think of Bing? Is Bing a viable alternative to this mess?
The last time I ever really even thought about Bing was, I'm going to say it was 8 years ago. It was 2013. It was when the Xbox One was new and every Xbox came with a Kinect camera microphone setup that could be voice activated. And trolls, who were geniuses in this instance, named their characters in games like Call of Duty things like Xbox Bing. Because if you said the term Xbox, it's like saying, okay, Google, or hey, Siri, or whatever, right? It triggers the thing, and then it asks for a command. So when people yelled at you in COD, they would say, oh, what the hell, Xbox Bing? And then their Xbox would open the Bing app and quit out of the game. And it's very funny. That is the last time I thought about Bing. So you know what? I don't know. I don't think Bing... I don't think Bing has it covered. I don't think trolling memes from nearly a decade ago has the chutzpah to become the internet for a whole country.
Haven't you ever, like, when you it's such a trap when you fire up Windows and they have the beautiful picture and it's like, did you know about this place in the world? And I'm like, oh yeah, I do want to know about that place in the world. Then you open it up and then surprise, it's a fucking Bing search result.
Gotcha, bitch! Actually, you've been binged!
That does happen. I think most people's interaction with Bing, much like the Xbox trolling, is by, accident. It is by rickrolling, as it were. But
with Microsoft Edge, it's even faster.
That's true. But if Google backs out, so let's humor this for a second, and Google just disappears. So, we always talk about we all use Gmail, we all use fucking Google Maps,
Well,
you
guys have Android phones. What's going to happen to the Android phones?
We have Android phones. Like, it is linked into so much stuff. So, all right, but say we figure all that out, and then suddenly Bing is the new thing. Google became a verb, right? Like, it became so ingrained, and we say like, oh, just Google it or whatever, or like I Googled it. Will the past tense of searching for something on Bing that I bung it?
Yes.
Because if so, I'm actually on board. Do it, Google. Do it.
I bung it. I'm saying I'm bung it.
No, it's just like, where'd you find out about this place? Oh, bung it.
I don't mind it.
Although,
just do it. Serious
note, in theory though, wouldn't
sign up to bung mail?
Wouldn't Bing?
and there's this great new cloud storage phone. This great new cloud storage service that they have called Bunghole. You just throw everything in your bunghole, and then it's safely kept there. It's for storage purposes.
Perfect. And then your own personal. If instead of Google Plus, we'll have our own like Bingalings.
In all seriousness, though, wouldn't Bing be subject to the same rules as Google?
Yes.
Yeah, but I guess if Google fucks off and leaves $4.3 billion on the table, I'm sure Bing will go $4.3 billion worth of revenue. Yeah, exactly. Like, we'll tap that market. What do we have to pay?
Everyone should be using DuckDuckGo anyway. It's the only one that doesn't fucking steal your information and sell it for money.
Are you telling me Jeeves does that?
Even Jeeves, bro.
Jeeves?
It's actually called...
I trusted you, Jeeves. I trusted you with so much stuff.
It used to be called Ask Jeeves, and now, after millions of dollars worth of rebranding, it's just called Ask, which is just confusing.
Why the hell would they get rid of Jeeves?
Jeeves is the whole thing. I would call it Jeeves rather than Ask.
Yeah, there was the shitty butler.
Asking was not the memorable part about Ask Jeeves.
No.
As in Jeeves is
the butler.
That's an old story musical thing by Jeeves. That's what that's in reference to.
Is it? Are you sure just Jeeves isn't just a very cliched name for a butler?
Yeah, there's a musical called by Jeeves, literally.
Did the butler do it?
The butler is the one that kind of solves everything.
So the butler did it.
Classic butler.
There's also another search engine which we were told to use in school called Dogpile. I have no idea whether it is, in fact, a pile of dog shit, but it was one that it's the only one I remember. Apart from Google.
Well, Adam, you can conduct some research on Dogpile. You can Bing it.
And then I will tell you that I bung it.
Yeah, bung it and get back to me.
You could DuckDuckGo some Dogpile in order to get your bunghole satisfied.
Oh, look, I mean...
On that note.
I mean, one other possibility is that we all just get on Reddit and Reddit becomes the new thing. Because certainly it is driving social change and world events, whether we realize or not. Reddit is the starting place of all the good and all the evil that exists in the world. And in this one, I'm not...
That should be their slogan.
It should be, shouldn't it?
We're all the good and the evil of the world.
Starts. Proto-good, proto-evil. And I am talking this week about the GameStop share saga. I guess it's now a saga. It's been going for about a week.
So I don't even know if it's just GameStop at this point. It's
other
split into other stocks.
As well.
So there was this,
now that they've realized their power.
So there was this post on a subreddit called Wallstreetbets. So Reddit is basically a forum. Lots of people sort of communities based around a particular thing, and people post threads and respond to each other based on certain topics and things that they're communal interest in. And so Wallstreetbets, basically there was this user who wrote this post about how GameStop, which is like EB Games here in Australia, like a physical games retailer.
They're EB Games parent company, so.
Oh, there you go. There's a bunch of Wall Street investors that were institutional investors from large hedge funds that were shorting this stock, so betting against it, saying that it would fail and trying to force that failure and make money off the company failing. And I guess the response was, well, fuck these big hedge funds. We're 90s kids. We love GameStop because 90s. That's
I'm
why
amazed they found a whole bunch of nerds who like GameStop.
yeah, I know. I was just kind of like, would we fight as hard to rescue EB Games? Probably not. It's a bit trash. $110 for Call of Duty. Why? JB's got it for like $60. Why would I do that?
They've also got a really weird refund policy, but anyway, let's not get into that.
So basically what a bunch of Redditors did is they sort of piled on and said, well, if these companies are betting against the stock, we're going to buy the shit out of it. And basically the thing with inflate the price, meaning that these big hedge funds would actually lose money on this deal. And the higher the stock price goes, the more they lose.
So you're telling me that supply and demand actually works?
Well, I mean, okay, so a lot of people saying like, oh, you know, the big Wall Street guys like, this needs to be regulated. This is crazy. These financial markets are insane. They can't be allowed to do this. And to which everyone else went, yeah, that's what we've been saying.
Yeah.
Turns out,
or just more like, they're playing your game, mate.
There's a bit of Schadenfreude in it because, like, yeah, these billionaire hedge funds lost money on this, but you also got to remember that other billionaire hedge funds hold stock in GameStop and are also getting massively rich off this as well. So it's like, it's not this simple thing of like, yay, power to the people fighting back, because also some of these people are buying in at GameStop stock at like $400. They've spent their rent because they've seen the stock going up and up and up, like apropos of nothing, and they've gone, oh, yeah, I'll make some money off this as well. It's like a classic bubble sort of situation now where people have bought in.
We've heard about it, we've missed it.
They've bought in at 400 and it's like dropped to 130, and that was like their rent money for the month. So like, you got to remember at the end of, for a buy and a sell, there's always a person at each side of those transactions. Sometimes that person is an institution. So, and at which point, like, you go, yeah, fuck them. They were trying to drive a company into the ground to make money off it. Fuck those people. But for most people, it's just like, this is real life, their own life money that they're playing with, and people can get really badly burned. And then there was also this whole thing about Robinhood, which is this trading app, basically halting buying of these stocks at a certain point, only allowing you to sell them. But meanwhile, the institutional investors can buy or sell these stocks however they like to try and recoup their losses. So it's like this weird thing of like Robinhood, the app, which is literally named after buying from the rich and giving to the needy, is only allowing the rich to continue profiting off of this thing while their users get sued.
They turned around and they're like, oh no, we're obliged by our regulation that we can't do anything. Our hands are tied. We've got to stop trading. And I was like, do you though? Or have you just made that up?
Well, here's the thing, is there will be liability. This is the thing. Is really the stock exchange itself, seeing how this thing was spiraling out of control, really should have put a halt on all trading altogether until everyone just simmers down. That's what they've done in the past. But it is weird for individual platforms to halt trading, or not halt trading, to allow you to sell your position but not buy more. That's the weird part about it.
To be restricting trading specifically in a way that affect, like, the poor, quote unquote, in this scenario, given you're dealing with billionaire hedge funds.
Sure.
To be halting their ability to play the game.
Yeah, I know you can't manipulate the market. That's our job.
Yeah.
Only the big guys are allowed to do that.
Yeah, I've loved seeing people just be like, I thought like a tweet I saw that was amazing with, you know, people saying like, oh, a $600 stimulus check, that can be a lot of money if you invest it right. And people go, okay. And they go, no, wait, not like that. No, don't do that. Like, yeah, just it is like, there's a lot of Schadenfreude seeing them. Like, yeah, seeing kind of like,
shows that
people realize they can play this game if they unify like that, to like, not so much that that, you know, the lower classes are now becoming millionaires, but more of a like, oh hey, if they're fucking with the markets and they're playing with the rules of capitalism, like they're exploiting all these loopholes, if we exploit it too en masse, we can fuck with them, and then we see how much their convictions stick up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's you're all very free market until the free market bites you in the bum, and then like, hey, this is unfair.
So what other stocks have been affected? The Nokia was one of them, I think, wasn't it?
Nokia was one.
I think it's
BlackBerry.
now become a meme. Yeah, it's now become a bit of a meme amongst people that they are now buying up stocks in companies that we all consider like pretty defunct, like BlackBerry. who talks about Blackberries anymore? I saw someone say, can someone bring back like Capitol Records next? Like Blockbuster.
So
all
in
this sort
theory,
of
though,
stuff.
if enough people buy the stock and the stock inflates, then each one of those people that were a part of that movement could then sell their stock, right?
Yeah, that's called a pump and dump scheme, Adam. It's literal market manipulation. Like, it's funny. I saw the guy from Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, being interviewed about it.
No.
And,
no.
No, and he actually had like a really reasonable position.
You're a guy who once did crime in the stock market. What do you think of this?
It was quite literally like, she goes sort of basically something to the effect of like, well, if anyone knows about a pump and dump scheme, it's you. And he's like, yeah, like correct.
He's like,
what did he say?
He was saying basically that like all of these trading companies are going to have, they're going to be holding liability. So for them, I think it's them. There's going to be a bunch of lawsuits at the end of all of this, and they're going to say, why didn't you protect investors from making these ridiculous, decisions with their money? And they're going to be left holding the bag. That's why they've made these decisions to halt trading, but not realizing that doing that is also going to open them up for other liabilities on the other side as well. So it was actually like quite a reasonable, measured point of view. But I was like, yeah, we are literally talking about the guy who did the pump and dump scheme with the shoe company. It's detailed in the film. Like, what was the name of that company? Paul.
It was something about as a basketballer or something, wasn't it?
No, it was designer. I forget the name of it, but it's not important.
I remember.
But yeah, literally, like one of the things that he was found guilty of was doing a pump and dump, where you pump up a stock and then sell your interest in it off at an inflated profit, and then it crashes, and it doesn't really matter what happens to the company. Like, as long as you got in and got out at the right time, you've made a shitload of money for not doing anything. Like,
so I mean, while it is a Schadenfreude moment, like GameStop's, this is the other thing, GameStop's, for instance, their earnings revenue has been sliding for the last like 6 years.
They've had a terrible year as well. Yeah. I mean, they also had some pretty awful practices.
So once they're
forcing their employees and stuff. But,
Steve Madden was the shoe company.
Yeah, so like they've had a pretty, like, they've been closing stores, like all that sort of stuff. So now that their stock's been hugely inflated, despite their really poor position, I don't know what the ramifications of that is. Someone smarter than me can tell me that.
Does that just mean that then eventually once it equalizes, that they actually end up worse off potentially?
Maybe. Apparently, like other people are saying, like there's been other institutional investors that have been behind all of this, that have gotten into GameStop and like want to inflate that. So it depends where the stocks are being sold from. If the stock is being sold from the company and the value of the stock has been increased by 17,000%, then the company is essentially getting a bunch of cash and cash flow in at far reduced rates than what they've been able to before. So this millionaire investor came in, he bought a bunch of the company. Apparently he's wanting to make a pivot to e-commerce. And so like, if you get a bunch of cash in, it could be the time where it could be an opportunity for them to revitalize the company and sort of drag it into the 21st century and pivot in that way. So it could be an opportunity for them, or it could potentially be a situation where basically the company sort of self-destructs under all of this upwards and downwards ping-ponging sort of pressure. So,
because the movement is unheard of. It's like, 1,000% in one day, back down 360%. Like it's flip-flopping all over the place at the moment.
It is several times more volatile than Bitcoin, if that gives you any indication.
Oh, and it's just fantastic seeing like all these like high profile media outlets just like quoting stuff from Reddit with Reddit usernames and all these sorts of things. And, referring to the man who initially like dropped 50k into this that's now worth millions as king and all this sort of stuff. It's hilarious.
Blow My Balls 69 says, gotta hodl those stonks.
Oh, so much game stonk.
It's
crazy.
Weird. It is a weird, wild, and to the extent that it's actually like collusion. A bunch of people getting on a forum and saying, let's coordinate our purchasing behavior to a particular end.
To inflate stock, yeah.
To inflate stock. Like that is quite literally like the definition of collusion, right? Like all of these things, if it was done in a back room of some hotel, in a boardroom, in a smoky back room, would be collusion. Like these would be market manipulating tactics. So... which would be illegal. So
it's organic and everyone's having fun on the forums, George.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's kind of this weird. It's Jake Tapper had a great CNN anchor had a great tweet. He goes, "Let me get this straight. So this is the first and only time that anyone has manipulated the markets. Is that correct?" It's just like, yes, very good.
Very good point. And it's
good gear.
It's also one of the rare issues where you'll see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ted Cruz agreeing on anything.
How weird's that?
Well, as she did, so she tweeted about
He tweeted a thing and he said he agreed.
And he said he agreed. And then she said, you literally tried to get me murdered a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not fucking interested in what you have to think about it. And I was like, that's fair enough.
Yeah, that's a fair point, but...
That's fair.
Still, they agreed on something, but he also tried to have her killed, so...
So swings and roundabouts.
Allegedly.
Yeah, free market and whatnot.
Oh, gotta love the free market. Speaking of free, I guess this is the end of our free show.
On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow me on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me on Instagram at AC Dream.
And you can follow the show at Unnatural Show. Make sure you... I've really fucked that up that time. I don't know what happened.
It is like 10 o'clock on a Sunday night. So, we'll let it slide.
And I've had
just this one.
I've had a bit of a beverage.
A tipple.
So, it's a podcast. Thanks for listening. Love your faces. See you next week.
You don't listen to the Sri Lankan health minister who drank a magic potion to fight COVID-19, then tested positive.
And that's it. That's the whole story. You did it.
Yep.
Was the magic potion just undiluted COVID-19?
It was honey and nutmeg, which honestly sounds delicious, but I don't think has any medicinal properties. So,
Shit.